Coastal erosion or propagation is mostly a consequence of marine sediment movements, and these movements are controlled by many parameters, as said Gonery or Manuel yesterday. I will highlight today one of them in order to understand the shore evolution in a transgressive context generated by sea level rise. Equilibrium of coastal zone is related to the stock and availability of unconsolidated sediments, the grain size distribution of sediments, the shore position and orientation with regard to oceanographic or climatic condition and forcing. An example. Coastal dynamic processes are a combination of cross-shore sedimentary movements controlled by waves and wind, and along-shore transport generated by littoral drift and generally tide currents. Here we consider a wave and wave dominated shore face. It's a high energy environment, and we postulate that if unconsolidated sediments with wide grain size distribution are available for all significant height of waves, it exists a particle diameter. I'm sorry for the pirate symbol. It's a phi. The mystery of software. The particle diameter in millimeters. It exists a particle diameter of sediments to induce onshore transport. I can see the wave nourish the beach. I will detail this process. If we consider this type of shore face, and here we have 4 types of sediments: fine sand in light blue, gravels and pebbles, which are generated by weathering of rocky outcrops in the near shore. If we have fine conditions, fine weather conditions, gentle wave, the fine sand are moving cross-shore from the foreshore to the beach. When the weather conditions are increasing, sand are now moving to the beach, and from the beach to the dune by wind actions. For higher level of energy, here we arrive at a level of winter gale, weak winter gale. Gravels, in turn, are moving until the beach. To the beach, I'm sorry. At this stage, undertow currents can affect the sediments on the beach, and the finer sediments are moving back to the foreshore. If severe condition appears, pebbles can be displaced, and they are moved to the shore face. Undertow currents is also increasing, and sands are unstable on the beach. If severe conditions are maintained few hours or days, here we are in annual conditions. Pebbles from greater depth are mobilized, and they are displaced closer to the beach. They can replace the precedent stock. After the storm, after the gales, decreasing conditions are coming back. And the pebbles stay on the shore face. Near the bottom of the dunes. And another cycle is beginning with movement of sand to the beach. Some field observations about these processes. Here you have a Ray Highland nice beach. In summer, sand is present on the beach. If you come back in winter, you have a very different landscape, and the pebble layer reduces erosion and protects the sand layers under the pebble layer. Now another example of these movements. We are going to French Atlantic coast in Oléron Bay, northwest of Oléron Island, sorry. This is the coast of Oléron Island. Here you can see on the aerial photographs the rocky outcrops at the northwest of the island with a Chaire point. This is another picture of this Chaire point. You can see here a lighthouse, and the rocky outcrops, and coast consists of cliff a few meters high. The cliff consists of limestones and marl, and you can see pebbles generated by erosion and some sand patches. The origin of these sand patches is unknown. If we continue from the northwest to the southeast of the coast, we have a series of beach and dunes. Beach are retained by harbor dike. Here you have a sandy harbor, another harbor is here, or some rocky headlands in this section. The sand is now very frequent on this part of the coast. Longshore drifts of sediments is known and is evaluated to more than 10,000 cubic meters per year. This longshore drift is attested by the dike and accumulations. Deposits at the end of the sand spit, here on the northeast, are estimated up to more than 60 cubic meters per year. The question is, where are the sediment sources? Pebbles, we know they are coming from the northwest, from rocky outcrops, but sands. The answer to this question is given by a chart obtained using a size scan sonar system. We have acquired imagery of seafloor. Here you have rocks in pink color, pebbles and gravels in brown, sands in yellow, and muddy sands in green. You can see a decreasing of particle diameter from the offshore area north of the picture to the southeast. The shape of sand ribbons you can see here, and the asymmetry of bed forms we have observed on the imagery allowed to conclude to onshore sediment movement from the north to the southwest and from the north to southeast along this path. Here the aerial picture shows sand accumulation. We can see field observation. Here we are on the beach, on the foreshore, and your pen gives you the scale. Pebbles and gravels are present, And the asymmetry of bed forms indicates the movement of sun from near shore to onshore. These movements are generated by wave movements. On this picture, you have a chart of wave propagation. The color scale indicates significant wave, significant edge of wave, sorry, and the condition of modelization are at the top of the picture. You can see the arrows are in agreement with the bed forms we have observed on the seafloor. Another example in the channel. This is the works Tessier et al. In the Mont Saint-Michel Bay, best known. These charts show you the coastal evolution from 7,500 before present to 2,000 before present, and the different sedimentary environments. Here is the present-day lowest low tide. Intertidal zone is from here to here. Mont Saint-Michel is here. It's M on the picture. The bay of Mont Saint-Michel was infilled by offshore marine sediments in a transgressive context. A more detailed map. At the entrance of the bay in the north, you see pebbles layers, and after, when hydrodynamics conditions are decreasing, sediments are fining, and we have accumulation of gravel and sands. We are in this context in tide-dominated environments, and we will interest us to these special bed forms, which are shelly banks here in the south of the bay. These banks are built by sediment transport, current and tidal current here and waves to the southeastern part of the bay and to the south. But here the movements of these shelly banks is governed by wave movements. Tessier and Weil have studied the dynamics of these shelly banks. Cheniers are known all around the world. They consider three types of banks. Here, tidal flat banks in yellow. They are the lower accumulation. In red, upper tidal flat banks. All these accumulations consist of shells with a part of sand. In the southern part of the bay, the banks are moving up the salt marsh, as you can see, on this picture. They have also studied the dynamics of these shelly banks, and they observed that closer from the coast are the banks, lower is the migration rate. This is explained by the low occurrence of high tide level and wave storm surge to overwash the shelly banks on the salt marsh. But these structures confirm we can move and accumulate sediments from offshore to onshore. The third example is in Pacific Ocean. You can see here Tahiti Island, French Polynesia, and here the atoll of Tetiaroa. We will present. You have seen yesterday this picture with Gunway. You can see here the reef of the offshore reef, coral reef, naturally, and the motu. These are islets. These islets are built by the sediment deposits generated by coral reef erosion. This picture presents the finished in 2 minutes. Sorry, thank you. It's finished. You can see on the beach coral pebbles generated by erosion of the reef. This is the erosion and accumulation and accretion area along the reef. Ask question. It seems that the shelter coast is more in erosion than the exposed shore. And we propose the relationships between the grain size distribution. Here the sands are well sorted. We consider that sheltered and anthropogenic coasts are the most sensitive to the sea level rise and climate change. Natural exposed shelves will be particularly affected by the wind or wave changes, but are more sea level rise resilient if sediments have a large distribution, wide distribution. To assess vulnerability and imagine resilient coastal structures, we have to determine the nearshore sediments nature and distribution and the cross-shore exchange path. Here we have proposed dune restoration and beach replenishment. And this structure here have resisted to Xintia storm surge. To conclude, as the biodiversity is the future of life, the sediment diversity is a guarantee for natural coastal zone, and we outline the main role and contribution of the marine fauna and flora to the coastal equilibrium as coral reef, shells production, seaweed. These organisms are very sensitive to the CO2 level and sea temperature that provoke coral bleaching. Thanks for your attention.